everyone, and welcome virtually, at least, to Glasgow. I picked this time slot because I thought it would be great, to start and get my presentation out of the way when everybody's nice and fresh. Never having seen Gavin Oates before and how fantastic he was, so I'm really having to step up to the plate with following Gavin now. So we're going to just cover sort of 40 minutes on daily innovation today, and how effectively how we treat innovation and continuous improvement as a process, if you like, as something that's similar to absence management. So you come into a new job, you have to report absence. Then we need to be able to do something similar with innovation. So we're going to look at it at the kind of institution context. So the context that the university, so a sort of strategic, how it's maybe framed strategically. Then how we might create an environment to be able to innovate and have continuous improvement. Look at some enablers that are available to us, so tools we're maybe familiar with and we all use. And finally, I'm going to reference the University of Strathclyde in a case study to demonstrate. This is quite a practical session. There's not very much theory in this. This stuff happens just now. I live and breathe this sort of thing every day. This is part of my standard work and my standard approach on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. These things I'm going to talk about actually happen within the University of Strathclyde. So this is really hopefully a sort of operational takeaway kind of session. And that's kind of the objective of today, really, is to take away things that if you ever involved in continuous improvement, if you ever get to the positions where lots of improvement ideas are being generated, but actually we don't complete too many of them, or we kind of talk about it a lot, but we maybe don't see the benefit of that change. This sort of thing is for you today. This is to try and target that sort of thing. So, university context, we're particularly fortunate, I suppose, being in Strathclyde, as we have a Vision 2025 document. All your institutions will have goals and vision documents looking into the future. And of the 5 main objectives in there, goal 3 is transformative innovation and impact. That is a direct quote from where we are. So right from the core. So even if you're just starting to think about joining the University of Strathclyde, if you looked up our website, you would start to see the word innovation ticking along. So we're starting to set the frame for that. It's also listed in our values that the university holds and aligns our personal development with. And it's also recently been intertwined in our current people strategy going through to 2025 as well. So how we deal with each other, how we collaborate with each other. The idea of innovation and continuous improvement is interwoven within all of these things. So it's very easy to kind of reference a case to do things to be able to improve when it's so kind of structurally almost requested from you. So these are quite good in kind of projection things, and it allows you then to operate in that. But our university also provides an enabler, and this is relatively new. This is our Strathclyde Innovation Forum, and I think it's worth we're reading this section out. The forum is designed, it aims to encourage all university staff, irrespective of category, job type, to communicate and share our improvement ideas or innovative ideas, new and different thinking to make work more efficient, our jobs more enjoyable, and ultimately our university more successful to the benefit of us all. So this is an enabler. This is how you can do it. It's not just what. And that, I think, makes our institution quite different, that we don't just have values and little ways of maybe and goals and objectives, but we actually have a method where we can do this at a strategic level, which is great. But of course, the challenge for our teams then is how we feed into this innovation forum, and that's what we're going to cover now. So we're going to look at trying to create a team environment for innovation and for continuous improvement. I guess everybody who manages or everybody who works in improvement's relatively familiar with these kind of slides. This is one of my favourite improvement slides when people say, but why should we be doing this sort of thing? And it's basically the difference between fixing problems and actually improving something. Okay, so graph 1 there shows you've got your performance, which is standard. That's what you resource for. That's the money you've agreed to spend. That's the material you've agreed to use. That's the manpower you've agreed to put in. And that all leads you to that performance. That's the target. And then something goes wrong. The IT system drops down. Flu hits your team, so you've got 6 people off, etc. And all of a sudden, performance dips. And then we're able to resolve that. So the IT's fixed, or the change in the process made by the department who gives you a lot of your inputs and didn't talk to you about it. You've been able to resolve that. Your team are back up to full strength. You've maybe been able to train a load of new starts. And you start to go, everything feels like, oh, we're back. Yes, that's terrific. But you're really just back to where you were, and time's moved on. So things have moved on. Technology's changed, their environment's changed, the political environment has changed, but we're still doing the same. We're still targeted to do the same. And that's when we fix issues. What actually happens in fixing issues is probably not that in reality. What actually happens is, rather than allowing performance to dip, our performance line stays the same, but you close your laptop just before you go to bed. There's a lot of 11 o'clock emails sent around every night. You're doing a lot of overtime. You may be bringing people off of different tasks so that they're slipping, so that you can keep the critical performance up. That's usually what happens in higher education, in that kind of area. However, if we have an application where we want to improve, if we have a mindset of improvement, then we start in the same place. So we have the same resources, the same people, but we're challenging people. We're asking them, how do we make it better? How do we do more? And then maybe somebody has an idea, so we try it. We look at the evidence. It seems to work. Our performance goes up a bit. We train that out. We coach the teams. We put it in our SOPs. We make that the new best way of doing things, and then we continue along. So we're automatically got a little bit of a higher performance. And then somebody else might have an idea of how we could actually improve it again. The same thing happens again. We train it, we coach it, we put it in SOPs, we test it, we see that it works, and we put a kind of doorstop behind it, and we're carrying on a new platform. And all this, we've got the axis here as performance, but all this is giving you headspace. It's giving you time. It's giving you space for creativity. It's giving you thinking. It's giving you space for other things. You're developing, you're progressing, and you're able to take advantage of opportunities that come your way. So it's really important to have improvement and innovation as a standard within your team. So we want to create an environment that creates innovative solutions to local challenges. It allows the voice of every staff member to be heard, because continuous improvement is really about, empowering the people to make the improvements that are doing the job. They're the ones that know them best. So it's really about that kind of empowerment piece and giving ownership so that people can enhance their own work. We want to provide permission and autonomy to identify these sort of things. So many people don't realise they're allowed to make a change. They realise what's wrong, but they feel shackled, or as though it's not their role, or they might get into trouble if they have a go at fixing something. So we want to try and get rid of that. We want improvements that align to our goals and our activity, and it has actually both vertical and horizontal communication. So our customers and our suppliers are all involved within the improvement that might touch them, but also we're able to share up and down the chain as well. So to be able to do that, we need to look at kind of 3 factors. As with everything, if you're putting in a process, say a new process for managing applications, for example, university applications, then you would look at these three areas. You'd look at the human element of it, so the sort of habits and behaviours, the why, getting people on side, getting them educated and understand what to do. You then have a process for them to be able to go through, so that we have a definite line. If this comes up, this is what we do. This has to happen before here. There's dependencies in this. And you'd also consider leadership. And leadership is pretty important in this piece, because it's the control, it's the giving permission, it's the giving people the runway and the pathway for this sort of thing. So these are the three kind of elements we're going to consider in environment. So the first part of the human element, and this is really, it is almost as simple as just asking a question. Have you had any innovative or improvement ideas today? How often do you ask that question of your teams, of your people? How imprinted is it within them? And by asking this regularly, we're starting to create habits, and habits are how we do things. Habits are how we start to get a culture, we start to get success, we start to get progress, because people are in the way of asking this sort of thing. So if you ask that question, let's say we're going to do it every day, every morning. Maybe you have a morning meeting, a sort of huddle meeting, if you like, with your teams. If you start asking that question every day, the first day, nobody will have an idea. The second day, nobody will have an idea. The third day, nobody will have an idea. The fourth day, somebody will have been working on the third day thinking, you know, they've asked me that 3 times and this has been bothering me for a while. I wonder how we can fix that. And then they'll potentially respond to you. Basically, in human nature, nobody likes to say nothing continually, never to have an idea, never to think about how to improve. So we're starting to encourage and engender that way of working for people. So they're starting to think about their own processes. You're going to ask the question every day, so they start to think about that. Maybe this would be an idea that I could answer that question with, because I know I'm going to be asked tomorrow morning. Other kind of, to do that, I guess, and to get them to be able to answer the question, to get people, we have to really make sure we're encouraging curiosity. We really need to promote the why for people. So if you're, whatever they're working on, think about why different situations occur. So why are there errors here? Why is it always a Friday I get all these errors? Or why is it always in the new applicants that there's all these errors in? Why are these emails coming in at 11 o'clock at night for action the next day? Why is everything happening like that? Why have we got these kind of bottlenecks in this particular area? Or also complaints are a good way of mining things. You know, this is always late. That great always thing. It's so hard to deal with you. It's always late. It's always this. And these kind of type and frequency of complaints are a good place. So why do we receive them, and what is it about what we're doing that's generating these complaints? So it's quite important to be able to encourage this curiosity in people, so they can then answer the question you're going to ask. Some areas that some kind of human-based areas that are catalysts for innovative ideas. Experience is a big one. And by experience, I don't necessarily mean they've been doing the same job for 25 years, so they're going to know the best way to do it. It's actually probably the opposite of that. It's the new starts, the role changes, where they take some experience from where they've been, or something looks odd to someone, it doesn't work logically. That starts to spark a load of questions and a load of ideas and a load of things that we can then use and take on for innovative ideas. I mentioned issues and errors previously. So if we're getting new technology coming in and that causes problems, if we do have a lot of complaints, frequently when we go into new technology, so maybe we digitize a report or something like that, then the first first pass of it can sometimes, it's harder to work through. So we should kind of be thinking of that. And if we have an inquisitive mind that we're thinking, hang on, I didn't have to used to do 3 hours of changes to this report, because now it's digital. It only used to take me 2 hours to do manually. So there's something wrong in this. We want to encourage that sort of curiosity. And behaviours, mentioned things like late night emails, but existing workarounds, customer requests, existing workarounds are really very, very common in lots of processes we look at where we know this is wrong. So we get this information on this report from Excel, but we have to check these 4 different categories in it because it doesn't always pick up the right number. It doesn't always go to the right place. So there's this manual workaround to be able to get the thing because it's not right first time. Therefore, it's an error. So we need to kind of focus on this idea of this is where the rich ideas of improvement will come from. So our middle one was process, and this is a relatively, I suppose, typical process type, if you like. So we've asked the question, and people have understood, various ways that they might pick sort of thing this up. So we're bought in, but we're completed the human element by now. So we're looking at then our approach once, identify our opportunity, have a quick chat about it. Everyone in the team have a nice, I think, input, and we'll agree that that's a good idea. Okay, that kind of tends to be what quite a common way of looking at improvement, because people are bringing up ideas, and this is I'm not saying this is a terrible thing to do, but it's a good first step. What tends to happen here is you've identified your opportunity, you have a quick chat, everybody had a bit of what they think about it, and we've agreed it's a good idea, and it stops, and that's where it stays. And then in 6 months' time, when somebody else suggests the same thing, we realise we've not actually done anything with it. We talked about it, and therefore we start to get this, but we've thought about that before and we've never done anything with it. And all of a sudden, the positivity and optimism about going in to look at your opportunities and executing and getting a benefit from it has now got, but we didn't do anything with that, and that didn't work last time, or you take all these sorts of things. I mean, imagine if this was a process, and imagine you'd be able to come to Glasgow for this conference, for example. So you incurred some expenses to get here, and you went back to your area, and you went back to your home institution, and you met someone from finance in a meeting, and you told them, "Oh, I've been to Glasgow. Goodness me, you wouldn't believe how expensive the beer is in Glasgow. I've got all these expenses. These are all my expenses." And they say, "Oh yeah, well, we'll have to get that paid for you," and that's great. Okay, and you've had that conversation over, I don't know, in the lunch queue or something like that, or in a meeting when you've met them. If you then expect in your wage packet at the end of the month those expenses to be paid, I think you're liable to be disappointed, because there's a necessary process where it requires categorized better. It requires a more robust, tangible process. So I would suggest something like this, where we're identifying our opportunity, so that's the same, and then we're checking this against criteria. Okay, so there's a criteria check, because we can't do everything. No one can do everything. So we have a quick check of the validity of the idea. We'll then agree and record that idea. So all of a sudden, at this point, for the first time ever, it's now tangible, it's now physical, it's now written somewhere. I can touch it as an improvement idea. The next point is to allocate resource to investigate the idea. So someone now owns the idea, and to start to investigate it, to find out a bit more about it, and maybe some possible solutions. The next stage, we would look to kind of prioritize that and plan when we're going to do things and implement whatever we think the best solution might be. Then we'll check the results to see, did it work? Was it a good idea, before we start telling anyone else? And if it did work, then yes, we'll share our success. And therefore, maybe all departments who do the same thing as me can have this success, and therefore we're spreading that out. So we'll just look at these in a wee bit more kind of detail now. So we've identified the opportunity, which was the kind of human part of this. And now we're looking to evaluate our ideas. So your team will have different criteria to my team for this. We have a set of 5 goals in my team that we like to be able to allocate one of those to every improvement idea that comes up to us. So that's the why. That's the why we might be doing it. It's within the goals of the team, which are within the goals of the university. It's aligned to our core competencies. So are we actually any good at doing this sort of thing? I mean, if one of our ideas was, implement a new SAP system, then it wouldn't be much good for us, because none of us are particularly techy, none of us have got great IT skills. So is it something that we could do? And what is the anticipated benefit from it? So the big what. So yes, we can do this. So it is aligned to our objectives, and yes, we could do this, but what we're going to get from it? Is there going to be what's the sort of scale of the shift? And these sort of things will be different for your specific teams. When you're allocating improvement ideas, or they'll come in different shapes and sizes. And as a leader, when you're thinking about this sort of thing, it's quite important to think. You can't just say everybody can have 5 on their workplace at any given time, because the sizes can be quite different. So there's broadly 3 categories, I think. There's the kind of just do it, the simple one day, one person decision based. It happens within the team, so it doesn't affect anyone else. So, for example, an improvement idea we had was, as we start to work from home and as we started working from home and then going back into the office occasionally, we had different hours. So adding them to your email signature was a good idea, so that people knew you were communicating with people, you were telling them your availability, and when they could find you and where they could find you. So adding your agile hours to the email is it's done in a day. Everybody goes in just to do it. It doesn't need communicated anywhere else. It doesn't impact anyone else. The second one is a more considered thing. So there's some complexity in it. It might take a week or two, not full time, but maybe working an hour or 2 a week on it. Might involve multiple people. There's maybe a little bit more analysis than that to be looked at. And again, probably sits within the team, maybe one other department, but probably sits within the team. So one of ours for this, for example, was what we're doing today. We wanted to create a product to support innovation, so that we could offer some training to teams to go along with the university objective of innovation and improvement. So this was our product. So it took a little bit of time. It involved more people. We got different takes and opinions on it, but it was a slightly bigger action. And the final one, and the one that probably you don't want too many of within your team, because these are the ones that tend to clog things up, are project size. So it's something complex that's potentially months within this. Sometimes cross-departmental. There's quite a bit of investigation analysis to be done. Maybe not. Sometimes the influence isn't our own, so we can't control necessarily the resource to come into it. We're trying to influence with other departments. So an example of that is we were asked from an improvement idea from another area to improve the levers process. So again, that took a lot of different departments in putting all that together. So it took a longer period of time. So it's important to recognise the significant difference in time and resource required for these things, so that we're not, because we don't want to be swamping people with these improvement ideas. So We then have the idea to action. So we want to record it. So we've got the idea, we can potentially categorize it, look at the benefit of it. We want to allocate it to someone. So this is just like an action. So someone's now in charge of dealing with this improvement idea. So they have the responsibility, they know what priority it is, potentially have a due date in there where everyone's, so now we're starting to create a control mechanism that we know who's doing it, they know what they're doing, they have the right degree of resource responsibility to do it, and they have a date where they're committed to do it by. And then we would want to review that. So how frequently would we review the improvement ideas? What sort of method we use, and what would be the outcomes of that review? So we review monthly, just to make sure things are all ticking along. So now, once we have all this kind of written down, as I said in the highlight slide, this is for the first time it's become a tangible thing. It's now a thing, it's like an action, it's now on somebody's plate, it's now someone's responsible for making sure this happens. So whereas in the process one, we didn't have that. We had the idea that, yeah, we all thought it was a good idea, and we all felt a bit better for 5 minutes because we talked about that, and we talked about how good an idea it was, and then we went back to our Outlook and got depressed again because we had 20 emails arrived in that 10-minute time period. So measuring the impact is quite kind of important in process, and the idea of an evidence-based discussion. In that first process, I said there was a lot of I think things. This has been quite a good example to me of the I think, and it's typically people who really want to help. I'm not the most technical person in the world, so I was asking a lot of questions about sharing in the new platform for doing this presentation, and a lot of people were saying to me, yeah, well, I think when you do that, this happens, and that gave me no comfort whatsoever, no comfort at all. It either does happen or it doesn't happen when I do that, because the I think thing is, if I press this button and you all disappear, then that becomes a problem. And just because someone thought that didn't happen, I want to know for a fact that didn't happen. So again, we should, when we're looking at an improvement, let's not do too much of the I think, but a bit more of the do we have something concrete that we can say? Do we have something baseline we can say, yes, this is going to be better? And a bit of a nod again to our last step was be prepared to share. Higher education tends to work in silos a little bit, I think. Certainly ours does to a degree, and this is helping kind of this is helping if you're prepared to share and you have an idea which will work with other administrative departments or other academic departments, then for everyone to be on the same page and using the same processes, and that's the optimized process, is a really valuable thing, also in the way that they can collaborate with each other. So it's very, very important that when we have these positive ideas, we share them with our customers, with our suppliers, with our colleagues, and we have a mechanism for that. And Strathclyde provides this innovation forum as a mechanism for that. Okay, so to the leadership bit. Now, this is really just a prompt to remind me to take a drink, because I've had a bad throat for the last couple of days. And also to get you to think about really prepping you guys, so you've got a minute or two to think before we finish on the Q&A session at the end. And this would be a good topic, I thought, for it. So how do you currently innovate? So it's a question to you, really. What sort of process, if you like, do you currently have in your areas? And another interesting, I suppose, kind of question on the back of that would be, if I was to ask your teams, would they give me the same answer? That's that. If you like, if we require a kind of topic for our 10-minute Q&A at the end, maybe we should use something like that. So think about how you maybe currently innovate, and it would be good to share other processes with the teams, the participants as well. So this is the leadership action. So this is the third of the three areas. So we've looked at how we kind of get people on side and do the human element. we've looked at the process, and now how do we lead this? So how do we make sure it happens? How are we making sure improvement works in our areas? So participate is one. This isn't something for them. They can do that. You should be doing this sort of thing. This is something I do. This is something everyone does. So I'm participating, because if I don't, then why should anybody else? In the same way as I gave the example of the process of your absence return, if you maybe pass that in for your team every week or every month, whenever that is, you do that at the same time because it's scheduled and planned. So therefore, that's why it happens. That's why it's completed. That's why it's successful. So it has to be the same for this sort of thing. Schedule and plan the times. I would really promote a daily trigger. Just to ask that question. Doesn't take up a lot of time, but that's how you're starting to build a culture within your team. I'm going to ask the question, I'm going to keep asking the question, and it's going to be awkward for the first little while, and then it's going to start to imbue a lot more than that. And encourage curiosity. Let people know they're allowed to ask why, they're allowed to think, they're allowed to challenge. Give permission for them to contribute. I have been to places where they've just said, yeah, we were doing a kind of improvement 5S section, so we're tidying up somewhere, and this department had all these broken machines, and I said to them, why have you not just thrown them out? He says, oh, we're not allowed to throw them out. I said, well, how can you, why would you be keeping something that was bought in 1935 and clearly doesn't work and now will never work again? But oh, not allowed to. So that culture, giving people permission is important. This shouldn't be a huge big thing. Oh, we haven't done any improvement ideas this month. We'll need to spend all Friday doing it. That's not what this is about. So small amount each day, not last thing in the month, not last thing in the quarter, just a little each day. And that's what starts to build the familiarity. That's what builds the habit. That's what builds the culture within the team. So encouraging autonomy in solutions. Solutions are not wholly your job as a leader. You're not the person there. In fact, if solutions become your job, you probably don't have terribly many optimal processes. So the people doing the work tend to know the best way to do it. So encourage that autonomy. Solutions are not wholly your job. You're an enabler of solutions, and make sure you're aligned to your team objectives. So I might have a great idea about, I don't know, improvement idea about crocheting coffee cup holders to keep your coffee warm. It's not within our aligned objectives or anything like that, so we wouldn't be doing that one. And there is a control element to leadership. So we should set expectations from the start. We never do everything. People who raise an idea, as long as it's compared against criteria and we can have a sensible explanation of why we're not carrying that out, it will respond to that sort of thing. It won't put them off. So we never ever do everything. And try to use evidence in your criteria as well. So that's kind of quite important. Does it meet our objectives? How many errors are we having just now? Sometimes something can feel like a big thing, but it's a small thing. So let's kind of get an idea of the scale of the improvement. We can use this sort of thing to help prioritize improvements. So for example, when we went into lockdown on the 23rd of March, I think it was, for Strathclyde, we benched every single improvement idea for 2 months and started on how can we operate remotely? What do we have to start doing? So we benched everything. So it was a complete new set of priorities, and that sort of flexibility needs to be available within the teams, I guess. And manage the resource and the time of your team. Don't give it to someone as an extra. So this is, let's assume everybody's, at capacity for their day job. So if they're going to take on a task or an improvement idea, and it's maybe going to take an hour a week for a couple of weeks, make sure you've given them that hour. Make sure they know what has come off their plate, so that they can now deal with that, and the buy-in you'll get will be fantastic, and they'll finish on time, and it'll be better than you expected. But it's important it's not just another thing that we keep piling on and piling on. So there are some enablers to support innovation. That was the idea of the kind of environment behind it. Our enablers are some of them are kind of mechanisms and some of them are tools, and some we're using just now. So I thought it would be useful to, these are kind of good mechanisms and tools to get in the habit of using when your team is kind of pursuing innovation and an innovative culture. So we're going to look at just Go and See, which you've probably heard of. If you read Toyota and lean stuff, that's kind of Gemba, they call that, but we kind of try to simplify it into Go and See. Leadership standard work. Do you have a communication plan? What kind of platforms could we use? And do we want to be, what could we be reporting on and reporting to kind of showcase our success, if you like. So Go and See. So I pinched this cartoon, and it's the don't go and see story, if you like. So the first box is the managing director and the operations supervisor in the boardroom pointing to very positive graphs of up, you know, profit, money, everything going fantastically well. However, the factory manager is the chap in the second picture, and this is how we're managing to achieve this, because we haven't spent any money in infrastructure, we don't train our staff, we haven't bought any products. So yes, it looks like we're making money, but it's because we're killing everything else. We don't understand the process of how we're getting the measurements, and at the end, of course, it doesn't work from it doesn't work for them. So it's doomed to failure because there's no focus on the process. There's no ideas coming from the shop floor, and Go and See's a real kind of enabler for that sort of thing. The main benefit is it just removes assumptions. I mean, the poor MD there thought everything was going great. It's probably never been in the factory, but Go and See sort of removes assumptions because you actually see how the thing's working. So big assumptions we're getting at the moment, or something's gone wrong, well, it was Brexit, or it's that finance department, or maybe it's HR, or it's IT, which is common common with me here, or it's the system doesn't support that, system says no, or it's resourcing, or a very popular one in our department is it's that Graeme Gilkes again. He's it was bound to have been down to him. So again, it kind of removes these assumptions. It's important we understand, and Go and See maybe a little more difficult now that we have a degree of remote working. But for example, if you're I don't know, an invoice, for example, then try processing that invoice yourself to understand what's happening. Try watching that invoice being processed if someone's sharing a screen with you. Try doing these kind of things. Don't assume you know what's happening in your respective areas. Just go and see how it's actually working, how it actually functions. So leadership standard work is this is something that I find very useful personally, and I think it's a great enabler of things happening. And it's effectively just looking at your tasks, deciding whether they're daily, weekly, or monthly, or when they need to be, and scheduling them. So consider a type of tasks and then documenting them and scheduling them. So this is a kind of live example of my standard work, only to do with improvement, only to do with improvement process. So we have a daily stand-up meeting for 10 minutes every morning. One point on the agenda for that is the daily trigger question. Okay, so that's us ask the daily trigger question: have you done any improvement ideas today? At our weekly operations meeting, we look at all the new ideas for the week and we allocate them to people. So at this point, again, it's one agenda point or an existing meeting. So it's not a full meeting they're like allocated at this point. I have an hour on a Friday afternoon booked out to do any actions I've got. So this isn't a meeting, this is just me. This is just blocked diary. We have meeting free Friday, and the university, and I block out an hour so that if I have any outstanding actions, I can do them. Outstanding improvements, I can do them. If I don't, it's business as usual. And once a month, we have our improvement idea review. Now, this is an hour, and it's the whole team together looking at what we've closed, whether it was successful or not, what we've got in WIP, any barriers, any blockages, how we can overcome that. So it's encouraging things to move forward. That is conservatively, or actually as an overestimate, is 10 hours. So 6.5% of my scheduled working time a month to spend on improvement. 6.5% doesn't sound that much, and that includes the full meeting count for these meetings that actually it's just an agenda point in when we're doing something on it. So that leaders, that ensures it happens. It ensures it happens every day, every week, every month, and it ensures we're raising ideas. It ensures we're executing them, and it ensures we're managing the process as well. So communication plan is quite related to, I guess, what we've just seen. So introduce your innovation improvement activity within existing activity if you got that you already have. So we have a daily stand-up every morning. You may have a team huddle or something of that kind of description. Put your question in there, make it an agenda point, ask the question every day. Only takes a minute to, only takes a few seconds to ask, and then maybe a minute or two if you garner some ideas. If you do team meetings, operational meetings, weekly or monthly, have it as an agenda point, allocate them, look at the progress of them. Make it on the agenda of one-to-ones, so how they feel about what they're doing, if they have any ideas of what they're doing. So we've added nothing so far. All we're doing is incorporating it into existing things. And there may be bespoke meetings that you decide to add something like this to as well. So if you have customer meetings regularly, then improvement ideas of how to work between them would be a good idea to put things in there. So on the more kind of practical side of things, we have platforms for collaborations. We have Zoom, Teams, Trello. You're probably all very familiar with these sort of things. Zoom and Teams, really this interactive is very important. I should say I'm not promoting any of these things. These are just 3 tools that we have that we find are useful. You may well have other or better within your institutions. And Trello is effectively a listing tool where you can put actions on it, and it integrates with Microsoft, so that if you put an action and put the person's name on it, it emails them when it's close to their due date, etc. So it's integrated with your Outlook. It's again, these all have academic licenses, and they're incredibly useful for making it visual. And final bit on this one is think about reporting. So what might you want to know? You might want to know whether your benefit generates revenue, saves cost, saves capacity, improves the lead time, improves quality, reduces errors, contributes to sustainability, reduces your carbon footprint, increases the satisfaction in the team, of the customer, of the supplier. And you then might want to know who it's relevant to. Is this relevant to the students? So is it a student benefit? Is it you? Is it your team? Is it your department? Is it the faculty you're in? Or is it the whole university? And if you think about these sort of things when you're documenting your improvement idea, then that reporting is already in there. You've set that up, so you know that, yeah, we had 4 improvement ideas in June that saved 354 hours for our team, for example. So I'm just finishing now for the last couple of minutes. I just want to show you how we work it here. So this is a kind of live case study of the CI Directorate within University of Strathclyde, of which I am a member. So this is our process. So we identify the opportunity and validate it, as we did in process 2, and we do that through a daily stand-up. We allocate things for action in our projects and operations meeting. We look at updates and closures in our improvement review monthly, and we look at progress and control through we have a performance measure on this, and I'm just going to share each of these screens with you. So this is what Trello looks like, and this is simply the agenda for our morning 10-minute meeting. So the first orange circle is the agenda point for improvement and statement ideas, and the second column is the list that they would go into in that Trello on that morning meeting. So this is Trello again. This is for our operations meeting. We have a board for each of our activities at any given particular time. We log our improvement ideas on a separate board, so it goes from the first Trello board into a new one, and we talk about them here and we allocate them all. So everybody has one, everybody's there, and they are able to contribute. Yeah, I think I can do that, and maybe give me 2 weeks for it, as the kind of discussion we get around there. So that's a weekly meeting. Now, managing the process. This is the only bespoke improvement meeting we have. It takes 1 hour. It's monthly. This is our improvements board. You can see here we've all got named columns, and we've all got improvement ideas allocated to us with times on it. And you can also see some labels. Trello allows you to put labels on it. So if you're and that can be things like, what do you think it's going to help with? Is it capacity? Is it engagement? Is it a financial benefit? Is it sustainability? And also we look at whether it's strategic, whether it's operational as an improvement, but also whether it's a sustainment action. Because I said at the beginning, there's no bad thing fixing the problems on that slide, and sustainment is how we is our nod to fixing the problems. And finally, this is how we control it, if you like. So this is just a monthly performance review, and it's really how much we're closing. I really would encourage you not to measure how many you open, because an open improvement idea hasn't achieved anything yet. You achieve them as you close them, as they're embedded. So we look here at the number of ideas closed per month this year, our current WIP, and also our kind of year-to-date improvements. We took a massive hit in 2020 with our ideas for how we would come out of lockdown better, how we would operate within lockdown. Okay, so that effectively is coming to an end. I hope I'm within time. I am. That effectively is the end of the pitch. Again, the idea being that it's a tangible thing, it's a process, it's something you need to treat like processing application forms or process sending invites. So it's scheduled, it's regular, it's not, doesn't seem to be a burden to people, because as leaders we're allowing them a little bit of time for it. And you can see the time I've got booked out for it. Apart from the meetings, it's only 1 hour a week to actually work on things. So 1 hour a week specifically to work on those particular actions. They're kind of held there, but they become documented, they become tangible. So they're not the improvement ideas that you discuss in the lunch queue and that you get into the corridors. So people can see things happening, they can see the benefit, they can see things going through the process, coming to the end, being embedded and working for them. So they get to be able to see the outputs. I think if there's anything in that, then that's, I guess, the kind of key takeaway. So I guess I just open up to if anybody would like to either share how they innovate within their area, which would be great, or have any questions on what I've talked about today.